when we go through this, I don't think there are any time frames that I recall that they mentioned, so can we just say they didn't mention the time frame? I understand, I know you told us what the shortfalls are. Otherwise, we'll be here for days and days and days. So does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it's an important topic.
Oh, I
mean,
agree.
so I don't often have an issue with the methodology per se. In other words, a methodology that ESS used in terms of the techniques, I would not argue that is an invalid technique. But the issue is when those techniques were deployed, the frequency of deployment of those techniques, the fact that multiple techniques for many of the taxa were not used, some species aren't accurately captured by certain sampling methodologies. That's why you have to use multiple methods. And so there's huge data gaps in the biological survey because of the timing. And Mr. Ringler stated repeatedly in his testimony that the goal was not to try and sample for as many species as can be found on the site. He said the goal was to sample for the most species at any given time. And so I would agree that in terms of species richness, the number of species that you could see in any one given time out there, June would be appropriate. But if you're trying to determine species of concern, you have to look at when those species are going to be out on the site and not perhaps buried underground, down in South America, because they haven't migrated up yet. Perhaps they haven't emerged out of or transformed from a larval stage, hidden away in leaf litter or inside the interior trunk of a tree, things like that. You have to sample them during the time period where you have the best chance of sampling them. And oftentimes that was not done for many of the surveys.
And that was not recommended by DEM to do in their correspondence and comments to ESS, correct?
I don't know why it wasn't. Probably a major oversight. Either that or they're just assuming, as Mr. Ringler being a professional wildlife biologist, that he would know better. Certified wildlife biologist, sorry.
Thank you. But ultimately, DEM is going to have to, it's going to have to review the wetland permit in line with this study that was done. If they feel it's insufficient, they can go back and ask. But this is what they've told Invenergy to do. It's what Invenergy did. And if later in the permit DEM wants more, they can always ask for that, right?
Well, I believe DEM said that their only purview is to comment on wetland species. The majority of the species found on site, the endangered cerulean warbler, the threatened black-throated blue warbler, the threatened bobcat, these species use the upland. So there's nobody in the regulatory process that's apparently has the purview to comment on the inadequacies of these surveys.